This month on Central Christian Church Crucial Conversations, we are talking about economic justice. Join us on Thursdays as we talk with guests who are engaged in the struggle for economic justice and listen to learn more about how you can get engaged. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Central Christian Church's Crucial Conversations. This is a space where we are talking about different issues that are important in the life of our church and in the life of the world. And this series of podcasts is all about economic justice. And today I'm really excited to be joined by two amazing women that I met when I had a fellowship with Results, which is an organization that is building the power to end poverty. I met these women about probably like 5 or 6 years ago, which seems really unbelievable to me, but here we are. Time is making everything feel weird, but I'm really excited that they're joining me today. We have Maxine, who is everything from a volunteer to a board member of Results, and she is a servant leader in the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And then we are also joined by Reverend Lisa Marchal, who is a manager of Grassroots Impact with Results and is an ordained clergywoman in the United Methodist Church. So to go ahead and get started, I would love to just hear from you both a little bit about the work that Results does in your own words, and why your grassroots volunteer model is so important to what you do.
Well, Results really is just a movement of everyday people, and we exist to empower everyday voices to speak out about the poverty that they see in daily life that really should not stand any longer. And we're dedicated to the model of the citizen voice, because that's where we think, the real power lies. And we just want folks to know that their voices do make a difference, that they move the needle, and that it can be everything from holding at bay something that could be really, really awful, to being in a position, what we really want to be in the position of is pushing forward something that is transformative. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do around the country, and we have affiliates around the world that do this work.
I don't even know if I should have anything else to say after that. Lisa captured it oh so well. And so I will add even so much so what the Results model, and again, who we are, not just everyday people, but we have really pushed this effort and work to become a part of our lives. This is beyond just picking up a task to do. It has been embedded because these are things that we live, we see. And so it's really phenomenal to be able to connect with so many like-minded people on issues across our country in various areas, that whatever it may look like, whatever hunger, whatever poverty, whatever issue that we are taking on look like, to be able to use our voices collectively to really push the change that is needed so much. Even more so now, as we see in the light of our pandemic and other global affairs that are happening across this world and country.
Thank you for that. Lisa, you mentioned sort of the idea of sometimes it's about keeping something that could be really horrible at bay. Sometimes but we want to be in a position of pushing forward. Could you just, for those in our congregation and who are listening who maybe aren't familiar with the specifics of like what you mean by that, like if you could talk, either of you could talk more specifically about the kind of issues that you work on, and maybe give us an example.
Sure. And I know that Maxine can build on anything that I say. Our campaigns are somewhat dynamic in that we want to be responsive to what's happening in people's lives right now, but we generally choose campaigns under 3 themes: education, economic opportunity, and health. And more, we're looking at how do we choose our campaigns through the lens of racial equity, because we know that the intersection of racial equity or the absence of it and poverty, that intersection is really strong. So what that has looked like lately, on the US policy side, we've been looking at affordable housing policies. We've been looking at policies to expand and strengthen the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. On the global side, on the global policy side, we have campaigns that tend to look at tuberculosis as a disease of poverty, maternal child health and nutrition, and also global education, particularly making sure that there's equity and opportunity of education for girls.
Thank you, Lisa, for having the confidence in me to build on that, as well as even to make it even more simple, I would say, with the issues and the campaigns that we do take on. It's so unique that results really exhibit that model of voices within our organization first. And so we are able, as grassroots volunteers, to bring about the issues that we see and hear and know, and we address those with, we have conversations, and staff and the board really examine what angle we should go in. And even more specifically, when we talk about affordable housing, I remember a few years back, we were looking into new campaigns, and we wanted to hear from our grassroots network to say, what are some of the things that you all are hearing out there? What do you believe need to have more support? What can we do with policy to help move that needle, right? And so being able to see that come into fruition, that results have been a leader in our housing work and really introducing affordable housing as a priority in legislation and meeting with all of our members of Congress through our advocacy has been yet another simple result of just the work that we do. And so I'm really excited to see that results really does get results done, not just in policy, but with how we are able to shape our campaigns and the actions and things that we do within our organization, and then being able to expand it outward.
Yeah, and to play off of something you just said, Maxine, that really is our focus. Like Maxine said, our focus is changing policy on a congressional level. Mm-hmm. There are many ways that you can intersect with problems and affect change. We just happen to take the bite of the apple that is the federal, that is Congress, and move policy on that level, and sometimes speaking to the administration, the presidential administration. So it's all important. That's just a piece that we've taken on.
And I think it's really amazing too, with that being the piece that you take on. I know a lot of even other lobbying groups for big causes. I don't necessarily hear so much about how much input the grassroots part of your organization really has in what you guys are doing. And really, it sounds very cool that really the grassroots nature of what you do is truly grassroots, where things are bubbling up from the volunteers that are able to make such a huge impact. So that's really exciting. Well, go ahead and back up a little bit. I would love to hear a little bit more, since both of you entered into results in different ways, how you guys got involved with results.
I just stumbled across results, right? I really believe, as is known as a servant leader, I believe that we all have a calling and a purpose to pursue. And so learning about results was one of those moments that I knew was really divine, because it gives me an opportunity to serve, and not just serve in my local church or in my community, but to be able to reach the masses. And so it was really remarkable for me to learn of results through another organization where it was a group of individuals. It's called Circles USA. And in Circles, we have a chapter in Indianapolis, Circles Indy. And so that group was coming up with an idea of how can we were able to discover that we had a voice, and we wanted to figure out how can we effectively use our voice. And so with Circles being an initiative that helped bridge the gap of poverty by intentional and meaningful relationships to help bring self-sufficiency to those who are experiencing and living in poverty, and realizing there is a voice that can be used, we did some research and found results. And it was just like the aha moment, like it was just really amazing. And so once I learned of results and I signed up to receive the weekly newsletters, and there was this international conference that came about, I just knew I had to be there. And the moment I landed in DC, it was just really the time building up to get to DC, which will probably, take up too much time to really talk about, but I light up just thinking about my journey and how it was really a divine appointment for me to have been right where God needed me to be at that time, and to come across so many people from various backgrounds, different economic classes, and all just plethora of people who came together for one cause. And one cause was to serve. They didn't realize it was serving, but to serve and extend this support and love to people that they may not even know. And so I began just going to those sessions at the international conference, and that lobby day on Capitol Hill was just like the icing on the cake, because now I felt like a champion being able to have this meeting. I met, I think, both of my senators face to face at the time, and I've met several House representatives from different districts in my first international conference. And so being able to talk about the issues at the time, we were talking about the earned income tax credit and child tax credit that Lisa mentioned earlier, and really taking on that issue and being a part of that fight to be able to protect and expand that those refundable tax credits, and seeing the success of that a couple years later. And so that's just a snippet of my story of being introduced to results, and how after almost 8 years, I'm still here and I'm still excited about the work that we do. And I'm really just, I'm so glad that I found results, or if results found me, but I am results.
I never tire of hearing Maxine's story. I was serving in my second congregational setting, and was sensing how I felt called to work even more in the area of policy change and the areas of poverty. Particularly, my passion at the time was HIV/AIDS and its intersection with marginalization. And that brings you into the area of poverty. I mean, it's all like a spider web, right? So I was thinking about these things in the context of my congregational work, and felt nudged to explore it more. And someone who was working in the building in a different capacity mentioned results to me and brought me along to a training. And the spark really lit for me when I learned that Results pushes for support for the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. I had learned separately about the Global Fund, and that's when it all kind of came together. I thought, this organization does the kind of policy work I'm interested in learning how to do for the issues that I care about. And I have a lot to learn from this organization. And I still feel that way, even though I've been on the staff for 13 years. I feel like I'm learning all the time. And that's how I found my way. We have a provision in the United Methodist Church called Extension Ministry. It's for folks that are serving outside of a local congregation, whether they're teaching or they're chaplaincy, or in my case, working for a nonprofit. So I still hold my credential with the United Methodist Church, but I just get to serve in this way. And I loved what you said, Maxine, about the sense of service, that even though not everybody articulates their results experience that same in that way, I resonate with what you said about feeling like it is a place of service. And people of all faiths and none come together under the Results umbrella, which makes the conversations even richer, because we can meet on this common ground and for this common purpose. So that's how I found my way there.
I love hearing both of your stories. I think it's one thing that I kind of heard in both is it seems like finding results was a real gift to both of you. I think, hearing about how Lisa, finding something that intersected so much of what you care about and then being able to work there is just really exciting. And then, Maxine, for you to be able to, find this way to serve through circles is just really, really exciting. So lots of different entry points. I know I was introduced to results through Lisa at church, and have really, really enjoyed the time I've been able to spend with you guys, even if I haven't been able to do as much recently. But I am just so proud of the work that both of you and the rest of results are doing. So my next question is sort of related to the political climate that we're find ourselves in, maybe coming out of. Over the past several years, it seems like there's an increasing culture of extreme partisanship when it comes to the legislative process. So, you see much less meeting in the middle, much less, working with the other side, so to speak. So I'm wondering, Results is very committed to bipartisan lobbying. How has that experience been for you guys in the past few years? And what is why is bipartisan lobbying still important?
That's really something good to really think about, Grace, and I appreciate you for asking, because I know sometimes when our knees are in the dirt, we just really going and don't get a chance sometimes to brace and realize what's really happening because of so many different factors that really contribute to the climate of the political climate per se. I can speak personally and individually for me, not necessarily Results as a whole, because we definitely maintain our bipartisanship. And so it's really tough at times to not side when it comes to humanity. The common ground that we all have is that this is bigger than just you and I. And so when we go and we meet with one side, right or left, any side, however we choose to meet with our legislators, these are human issues. And so I think when we take that focus and really go in with that mindset, these are not party issues, these are human issues, then it really doesn't it doesn't matter where we are on either side, because we're talking about people. We're talking about people's livelihoods. We're talking about generations. And we're talking about, doing the right thing just because. And so when I keep that focus, and I know that when others may see me in a room with that focus, and I believe the heart of a lot of us here in Results, when we keep our focus on that issue alone, that these are human issues and not party issues, we're able to address the needs that need to be met and really have these conversations, even the uncomfortable conversations in the rooms that may not be so pleasant, and being able to do so with grace and with zeal and even unapologetically, because when our legislators hear Results, they know who we are. We don't have to tell them. And, we introduce ourselves to new members and, the staff, and we give them our spiel on who we are with Results, being an anti-hunger and anti-poverty advocacy organization. But when we come in here, when we come into these meetings, we're talking about hunger and poverty. We're not talking about settling for just the mediocre jargon that has been happening over time, that, these meetings are very impactful or very serious, and we really take heart to what we talk about and what we do, and we mean it. And we do so by keeping up with everything that's going on all sides of the aisles. We keep up with media. We're making sure that we are continuing to train our grassroots advocate volunteers how to effectively write media pieces to push out these issues and put it on blast. We're continually training how to have effective meetings and to learn how to listen, and also to be heard when we are in these meetings and to build these relationships. And so I'm just, my passion with it just drives so much further, because when I take the parties out of it and focus on the people, then I know that we here at Results are really in a space that we are really getting things done. So that's what I would like to add to just your question.
Thank you. Lisa, do you have anything to add?
I mean, simply to dovetail on Maxine's great points, I mean, most of the time, we need people from both sides of the aisle to be working together in order to get quality policy passed. We need that collaboration and that cooperation. And additional to that is that you never know where your allies are going to be. I mean, if you go into a meeting and you've stereotyped the person that you're meeting with, I mean, we don't want to be stereotyped and have someone assume what we feel or think about an issue. And if we have the opportunity to go in and say, okay, here's a human being, like Maxine said, it's a human issue. And we go in and lay out the issue in front of the legislators that, that we're speaking with, and give them a chance to evaluate the issue for themselves and to hear us out people to people. You never know what might transform from that interaction. And you never know what door might be opened. And so we do ourselves a real disservice if we assume how someone feels about an issue before we even have the conversation. But at the end of the day, it's going to take all of us working together in order to get to to improving the situations in this world that we want to see improved and changed.
One thing that really stuck out from what both of you said is this idea of persistence in this in the nonpartisan model. And from what I remember, there's sort of a ladder of support. That might be the wrong jargon, but basically this idea that whenever you meet with a new member, you may not know how supportive they're going to be, but you can sort of gauge based on how the meetings go, like, okay, this person might be a champion for our issues, or they could be actually very against our issues. But the focus then becomes someone who's against our issues, like, well, what can we do to move them, obviously not to be a champion, but maybe to be more neutral about what we're doing. So the relationality of what you guys are talking about, I think, is really important in like moving people along and not just being like, well, this person is non-cooperative with what we want to do, so that's it. The relationship is over. So I think that is a really beautiful part of what you guys do in that relationality. So we have a few minutes left, and so I wanted to talk just about many churches have a sense of their economic justice work as being very on the micro level and through a lot of charitable works. And of course, when we're talking about an issue like hunger, there are these, you guys are in the sphere of legislatively, you can impact so many people, but also there are hungry people now who, really do need food pantry assistance, or, so like at Central, we have a food pantry, we have a free clothing ministry, we have these kind of things. But then systemically, there's so much that we can get plugged into. So I'm wondering, just what are great ways for them to get plugged in, if not at Results, with other sort of macro work, to be focusing more on systemic issues?
The on-the-ground direct service work that churches do is immeasurably powerful and helpful and necessary. But from those experiences, oftentimes people do find themselves asking the question, why is this not getting better? what are we doing wrong that this month after month, year after year, things are not changing? And folks that are on the front lines have a perspective to share. We don't want to tell each other stories, but we want to share our own personal perspectives about what we're seeing and what needs to change and why, and really put a human face on it. And those kinds of perspectives are invaluable in policy-related advocacy. And there are lots of options for people of faith to plug that in. Obviously, Results is a great place. There's a seat at the table. If anybody wants to be a part of that, we would welcome that. But there are also other great collaborators. Bread for the World is a wonderful collaborator and does great policy work in a Christian framework. There are other resources, depending on what your denomination is. There may be an advocacy arm of your denomination. Sometimes they're called a Washington office. And for example, in the United Methodist Church, it's called the General Board of Church and Society. They're staffed with experts who have resources where you can become involved in policy change. So seek out, ask questions at your local congregation. Who's doing advocacy work on behalf of our denomination on a federal level? Or if you're interested, you could do on a state level. They might be doing that kind of work as well. But places like Results and Bread for the World are also set up to embrace people who want to apply their faith in this way.
Thank you, Lisa, because it's really great to know that we have there are many places and areas to serve. And even if there are congregations who are looking for what can we do, what are something else that we can do to have more of a hands-on approach, on that micro level, because like you say, someone may be hungry today, so they may not be able to wait for a federal nutrition bill to pass in November. I encourage any and everyone, especially in these different groups and spaces, to, if it's something that you can do in your local church, if it's once a week, if you start off with soup Wednesdays or a bread giveaway Fridays, or however that look like for your congregation, whatever it is that you're able to do. And even if you don't have the capacity to do so at your local church, I would say get connected with your local food banks. I'm employed with one of our top food banks here in the Midwest that's a part of the Feeding America Network. So I'm consistent. I'm like constantly around just being able to serve in many capacities. And so there's opportunities to volunteer. There's always room for volunteers and help. And even now in the pandemic, we don't have our National Guards anymore. So we really, just like Results, count on our grassroots volunteers to help shape the work that we do in these local areas. We really count on our volunteers to help feed our hungry neighbors, call and check on the elderly, call and, see about a widow, call and check on a single mother. There's so many different things, and sometimes it may not be actually taking a meal to someone. They just may need to be able to hear a word from someone, just to bring hope. And so that's just something that I really pride myself in, making sure that each day that if there's someone that I can speak to, that I can leave a great impact on, I don't want to miss that opportunity. So being able to just slow down and realize who's in front of me for that day that I can be able to share with, it's a gift. Every day is a gift, and each person we come in contact with is the present. So I'm really happy that we are able to meet so many different people on so many different levels, wherever they are.
Well, thank you both for bringing a word and hope to me this morning. I really do appreciate the work that both of you are doing, and I really am excited for our listeners to hear what you guys had to say. And so thank you both for being here, and thank you for listening. And we look forward to you tuning in next week to hear more about these conversations.